We welcome everyone here. If you have cell phones, if you'd please turn them to silent or vibrate, we appreciate that. But welcome everyone. Councilman Brass has been asked to be excused. But we welcome again everyone here. We'll begin by approval of minutes for, no, Dave did that, excuse me. Approval of council meetings of July 5th, and we'll take them together if that's okay, July 5th and July 19, 2016. Do we have any questions on those?
Do you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance first?
Oh, yeah, I would like to do that. I even asked Donetta to do that. And Donetta, I can't believe I missed you. Donetta, I can't believe it. Yeah. I was going to do that, but I was going to do the minutes first. I'm out of sync. Thanks, Donetta. This is Donetta Mitchell. Donetta, you're on our ethics committee, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. We appreciate you doing that.
Stay on.
Oh, man. You'll stay on because I'll never remember, so.
I'd like you to all just join me, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Donetta. And Blair, he's so nice how Blair handles it. He always says like, oh, would you like to do this? And saying, dummy, you forgot to do this. But we know what he means. So thank you very much, Donetta. Okay, now we'll take those minutes together if it's okay. For council meeting July 5th and July 19, 2016. Are there any questions on those minutes? Okay.
I move adoption of the minutes for July 5th and July 19th.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Special recognition, there's none today, so we will go next to our citizen comments. This is not the part of the public hearing. This is if there's anyone here that would like to make citizen comments, we open that up to you. If for each individual is 3 minutes, and so we'll open that up now. No one's here for that, then we will close that part, and we will move to the consent agenda. Consider a revision to Drew Pearson's position on the Murray Library Board of Trustees from an at-large position to a District 2 position. I think this is a correction. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilman. Last meeting we had, I read in Drew Pearson's application and also talked about his qualifications, and I think it was possibly my fault, inadvertently asked for him to be appointed at an at-large position when in fact it should have been for District 2. And so we're just asking you once again to reconsider that for a District 2 position instead of an at-large position.
Okay. Might have been your fault, but the sheep followed. So anyway, we appreciate that. And then do we want to take these together on our next one? Mayor, are you doing this?
I am.
Okay.
I had the pleasure and the opportunity to, and Ethel, would you please stand if you wouldn't mind? I had the opportunity to interview Ethel DeFasse this last week, and I don't think I've ever interviewed anyone that is more qualified for a position in any of our council or boards. And her mother kind of opened up and ran and was the chief librarian or the head librarian in Glendale. Is that Glendale, Oregon? And because of that, Ethel got a wonderful experience to work underneath her mother in the library for many, many years as her mother stayed on there from its inception until she retired from that position. She also worked during her summer breaks as an assistant to the Douglas County head librarian. And then as she was working on her doctorate degree, you can imagine how many hours she spent in the library working on her doctorate degree as well. So Ethel got her bachelor's degree from Southern Oregon College, and then her master's degree and her doctorate degree from Bowling Green State University. She was an assistant, graduate assistant at Bowling Green, and also a professor of communication at the University of Toledo. Is that correct? Whereas she was named Outstanding Teacher of the Year and Outstanding Faculty Member of the Year. So I don't know that I've ever entertained anybody to be on a board that is so well qualified for that position. So I would like to ask for your consideration for your confirmation of Ethel DeFasse to the library board at this time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ethel. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it. Are there any questions regarding this? We'll take them if there's no objection together.
No, just thank you so much, Ethel, for being willing to serve on that board. We really appreciate it.
I can't imagine how Murray would have more of a jewel than it has in the library it currently has. But it's going to be fun to see a little of the behind the scenes story as well. And I thank all of you for
Thank you.
And with that, I would like to move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Brent?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes, and welcome, Donetta. I noticed that when I was reading her application, it said her mother was paid, but she was never paid. And you're still not going to get paid, Ethel, so. But paid in blessings or whatever. Hi, Ethel. Thank you. We're excited to have you. You've been a major part of our city, and we appreciate you and your husband. Your husband's still laughing about that no pay. All right. All right. Our first public hearing. Consider an ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2016-2017 budget. Justin Zollage, you're presenting. Thanks, Justin, for being here with us. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah,
I did.
2016-17 budget.
Yeah, I think I said that. If I didn't say that, that's what I meant, 2016-17.
Okay.
I speak so quickly and so fast that,
I might have missed you, so.
well, a lot of people miss me. But anyway.
Okay. Okay, appreciate coming before council tonight. We have 3 items on that we'd like to open the budget for. We would have put this in the original budget, but times change kind of quickly, and we have some opportunities ahead of us that we need to adjust for. So start out with our new fire station off of 4800 South, where we'll be moving the fire station is the plan. We'll be building a road called Hanover that'll be going through that area in the near future. But you got to move your fire station before you build a road. So we're asking to open up the budget for $400,000 for design. If this is too high, we hope that the project will be in between $3.6 to $4 million. Typically, design is around 10%. So if it comes in low, this will be rolled into the rest of the project for the building, the new building. If it's not, we'll be back. Okay, next one, our RDA downtown property acquisition. Excuse me, I need to roll back 1 second. I'm sorry, I'm struggling tonight. That will be, the $400,000 will be paid out of capital projects fund reserves. Okay, our downtown property acquisition from the RDA fund, $900,000 used from RDA fund reserves. That's to help with the property acquisition for our downtown projects. And then last, our 2009A sales tax bond payoff. We paid off a little bit last year, and we purposely paid off a portion of the bond, knowing also that we'll receive some additional tax increment this year. But this will be paying off the last remaining amount that was used to purchase land in our downtown. Once we pay off that bond, it releases us from bond covenants so that the RDA can do what needs to be done with that property for our downtown redevelopment. And that is for $450,000 and also from RDA fund reserves. So that's the 3 items. They're 3 fairly sizable ones. Any questions that you may have?
Any questions for Justin? Okay, thanks, Justin. We appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, as we consider a motion on this, are there any questions amongst the council members?
I need to have a public hearing first.
Yeah, that's right. Why don't we do that? It'd be a good idea. Okay, we'll open that for a public hearing. If anyone's here regarding this fiscal year 2016-17 budget, we have forms for you to fill out, but we would ask that you come up and you also have 3 minutes to discuss this towards the council. Seeing none, we'll close that part. Now we'll look to the council, and are there any questions that the council has on this? Okay, seeing none, we would take a motion.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance amending the redevelopment agency of Murray City, the RDA.
Is it the first one? Sorry, it's one up from that, Diane, sorry, the amending this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Welcome to my corner. Okay, appreciate it.
All right, let's try this again. I move to adopt the ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2016-2017 budget.
Second that.
Okay, we have a second from one of those two, from Mr., okay, Nablonsky. All right, Brent.
Aye.
Mr. Camp?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hale?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, public hearing number 2, consider an ordinance amending the redevelopment agency of Murray City, so our RDA, Central Business District Project Area Plan, to expand the tax collection area. Mr. King is here representing this. And this was discussed earlier in our RDA also.
This item has been in discussion for quite some time, including working with the taxing entities for this issue to be considered. Let me just outline and give a little bit of background related to that, especially for the public, so they understand. But this area that we are talking about, the Central Business District, has been a redevelopment area. It's governed by state law at this time. And it's been an area since the late 1980s, so multiple decades. It's been a redevelopment area. The focus of that is, as the area grows and as the tax valuations increase through redevelopment, that an item called tax increment financing comes into play, where those funds from that growth, instead of going to the taxing entities, the county, the school district, and other entities, stays within this area for redevelopment purposes. Can be utilized for public infrastructure, environmental review, incentives for redevelopment, help in cleaning up sites, parking structures, a variety of different elements. We've used these funds over time for those purposes. We've assisted with facade improvements, public infrastructure, acquiring property for future redevelopment purposes, and other elements. So that is the Central Business District, and this proposal is to expand that area. And I want to really focus on this. That does not mean taxes increase or decrease for anyone within the area at all. That's not part of this. It's simply an expansion to include additional properties, so if there is redevelopment or growth, those funds go from the taxing entities to the redevelopment area and to this area for purposes of redevelopment. So we went through an extensive public notification process. There's major requirements for that. We sent out property notices to all of the property owners within the urban renewal boundaries. That was hundreds of property owners. We provided notices to the tax commission, to auditors, state auditor, and the county entities, and all of the taxing entities, to make sure they knew that this is what is being proposed. And we provided all those noticing requirements. Appreciate the attorney's office in helping through those processes. So with that, our proposal is, you see it up here on the screen, it's to include 10.18 acres of property. Most of those acres are already public. They're public properties. It includes the City Hall site, it includes the post office, and also includes 1.73 acres of taxable privately held property. So our proposal is to extend that area, to include that acreage. There are elements that there is pass-through amounts that will go to the school district that's already in place. There's also pass-through amounts that will go through to the other taxing entities to mitigate the impacts of this expansion. The taxing entities have voted on this already, are in favor unanimously on July 5th. They considered this. And so all of these elements are part of this proposal. I want to reiterate, for property owners, this does not increase taxes. It doesn't decrease taxes. That is a separate issue. If they've received evaluation notices that there's assessments that have increased, that's not part of what this does, and this has no impact on that. It's simply an expansion of this area that's been in place for a number of years, and then reinvestment of those increased funds into this area. You see on the board The current base value is 1.9 million approximately. Our hope is that if the area gets redeveloped, especially with these public properties, that they will grow potentially, that's just projections, if we can create redevelopment of the area, clear up to potentially 45 million in the long term, and that's over a 18-year period. So based on that, staff is recommending approval of this proposed modification to the Central Business District. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Tingy?
No, we've learned so much about this, and you've been so great about educating us and the community, so thank you for that.
We've heard Tim, look, he says it like it's brand new every single time, and we've heard it 20 times, but it is, you're good. You're good. So, all right, thanks, Tim. We will now open this up for public comment. Anyone's here for anything for regarding this hearing? If not, we'll close that part and come back to the council. Any questions from the council regarding this? If not, do we have a motion?
Excuse me, I move approval of the ordinance amending the redevelopment agency of Murray City Central Business District project area plan to expand the tax collection area as presented by Mr. Tingy.
All right, do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Brent?
Mr. Ponsky,
Aye.
Mr. Camp,
Aye.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next, our public hearing number 3, consider an ordinance amending section 17.146.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to access improvement requirements in the mixed-use development, M-U, District, Murray City Community Development Division. Again, Mr. Tingy presenting.
Okay, this item was considered at multiple meetings by the Planning Commission. They provided a recommendation, which I'll talk about in just a minute, at the June 16th meeting. This is the area that we are talking about that's in purple that says MU. It's the mixed-use zone, bounded roughly by 4800 South to the north, runs close to the tracks, just to the west side of the tracks, and it's our mixed-use area where we really try to promote transit-oriented development with pedestrian elements as well, with future redevelopment in this area. So this is the area. The proposal is based on, in the current zoning designation of mixed use, we require, if there are any residential components to a project, meaning upper level condominiums or apartments, there's a requirement for lower level commercial on a portion of that lower level. With that requirement, as we've looked at this, we have standards for landscaping and planter strip areas that are adjacent to that. But where we are requiring commercial on the lower level, there is a need to have parking adjacent to that commercial to allow it to thrive and to allow close proximity for customers to these areas. So our staff took a look at this and proposed these changes, which we think will fit very well in the area, and they will provide close proximity from these customers to these commercial potential tenants of these developments. So here's what the proposal is. It's basically allowing for parallel parking as part of the area where the planter strip and parking strip in those areas are now allowed and required to go into. So what it would do is it would allow for a 40-foot wide landscaping planter, and then including street light and trees in that, and landscaping and shrubs as part of that. And then it would allow 2 to 3 parallel spaces between these planter strips. You see just a showing of a 350-foot property frontage where you would have the planter strip area with the lighting and trees, and then parallel parking, which would be in close proximity to a building, which is right here. And then you see that, the 40-foot planter, the 2 to 3 parking spaces, and that's the focus of this. Some other elements is it identifies, defines the landscaping and the scale of the landscaping, location of street trees, lights and planters within the area. There's a flared element that's included in that, and that flared element means that as you come into a parallel parking space like this, that there is an area that is allowed to be flared right here so you can have better access into those parking spaces. And so that is a component of that. That's something the Planning Commission wanted us to look at. We've considered in this. There's also requirements of parking distance to proximity to intersections. So 30 feet, there's a minimum or a distance requirement for that, so you're not too close to intersection with the parallel parking. And there's also street lighting elements every 90 to 110 feet. All of this is included as part of this this change or modification to these features adjacent to these developments that occur. Based on that, the Planning Commission had a lot of input with a couple of meetings. They provided a recommendation of approval, which is included in your packet. Staff is recommending approval of these changes at this time. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Tingy?
Yes, Tim, there was a lot of discussion and input from the Planning Commission, which I thought was great. There was one discussion that had to do with the street lighting standards. That I can't see that where anything was included in that. Is that right? They went ahead and forwarded this recommendation without any further.
Yeah, related to LED lighting. Related to LED lighting, and that was a discussion point. The Planning Commission, that was not part of their recommendation. It was brought up, and that's something that would need to be addressed, and we would address with the Power Department in their policies related to replacement of lighting and inclusion of lighting. I know they're moving towards that LED lighting as we look at new development that comes in and new lighting. I think that's definitely going to be a consideration, but it's not part of this proposed ordinance at this time.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it there, so I just thought I'd double check. Thanks.
Thanks, Blair. Any other questions for Mr. Tingy?
Yes, I'm on the LED lighting. I'm just wondering how that will work, to ensure that the lighting is LED. Is that, it's not a part of this?
Yeah, it's not a requirement. It would have to be part of the Power Department procedures and policies related to what they require as far as LED lighting. Like I say, they're moving towards that. As development comes in, we'll have to work with them on whether they would make that a requirement under their policies and procedures.
So that would still be optional then?
Depends. We'd have to evaluate what they would require related to the LED. But it would be something they would have to make the determination on through that development
I know they've been
process.
talking about it too, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions for Tim? Thank you. Thanks, Tim. We'll open up this for public comment, if anyone's here for this. If not, we'll close that part. Any discussion amongst the council? And if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending am I on the wrong one again? I am. Okay, so I'll move to adopt the ordinance amending section 17.146.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to access improvement requirements in the mixed-use development M-U district.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Brent?
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Camp?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, the fourth, our final public hearing is consider an ordinance repealing section 17.12.030 of the Murray City Municipal Code regarding the geographical representation requirement of the Planning Commission, Murray City Community Development Division. Again, Mr. Tingy presenting.
Once again, this item was considered at the June 16th for formal recommendation, June 16th meeting of the Planning Commission. They provided input on this over a couple of meetings. They deliberated quite a bit on it. And it's an interesting issue that I want to talk a little bit about, but related to that, they provided some recommendations that were not included in your ordinance. There had been some memos that address that were included as supplemental information in your packet. The primary issue related to some of the wording that they were providing is that most of that wording or in the intent was included in the purpose statement already of the ordinance, which I'm going to talk about here in just a minute. That's a little bit of the background, but this is an issue that is really interesting because right now in our ordinance, it talks about the intent, the purpose, and it's directly in our ordinance. It talks about that the intent is that the city planning commission be provided, which will represent the concerns, this is what it states, of diverse citizen groups as well as the broad interests of the community as a whole. It says that membership of this commission provide balanced representation in terms of geographical, professional, neighborhood, and community interests, and that a wide range of expertise related to the development of a healthy and well-planned community be sought when establishing or altering the composition and membership of the commission. Okay, so there's a variety of elements that are looked at, including expertise, including geographic location, community interests. All of these are purpose statements on how the mayor is to evaluate people that he recommends to you for consideration in the Planning Commission. As part of that ordinance right now, as it is written, in addition to that purpose statement, it requires that there's geographical representation of each one of the council districts plus 2 at-large elements as well. And so that's what is at hand right now. That's what we are considering, is whether that requirement be in place. And as staff, we are proposing a modification of that for a variety of reasons, and I want to go through those real quickly. First of all, this proposal, as we have it, that purpose statement is still in place. There is still going to be consideration of geographical representation. I would argue that within Murray City, we have a community that is fairly geographically, it's not spread out significantly. It's fairly bounded by other entities. There are not outlying areas where you have an area that goes up miles away from the rest of the community. It's fairly compact, fairly small geographically when you look at other communities. And so for that statement in and of itself, you don't have a lot of really broad areas of far distance, which would probably prompt more of a geographic representation. In addition to that, there is a need for a pool. We have times where we have individuals that we need to be brought into the Planning Commission. Sometimes some districts we don't get a lot of interest. We have advertised for these positions, and sometimes we don't have interest. In addition to that, there are times where we do have multiple people that have a lot of interest in being on the commission, but live in a geographic district where someone else is in place, and they can wait 6 years potentially before they would even get an opportunity. And that's our concern, is there are people with interest that are waiting for a number of years that may be in another council district, and so this geographic representation causes some issues, especially if we have a hard time finding people in this one area. But I think the most important part of this whole element is this. They are not representing constituents. They, as the Planning Commission, are not adopting policy like council members are. You are representing constituents. The Planning Commission is not. They are representing, as it states in the purpose statement, the broad interests of the community. And that's very, very important. They have to look at the standards identified in state law as well as local law, not special interests related to where they live. They have to look at the broad community. And so that geographic representation, in my opinion, does not really play into that. They're not to look differently at the area they live in versus another area. And this geographic representation sometimes promotes that. It's a concern of ours that it would promote that. So based on these reasons, we feel like the purpose is still there to really strive to get geographic elements in there where people in different areas, they're representing broad interests of the community, and we feel like the strict requirement of a geographic representation is not conducive to what their role is in the community. So based on that, we're recommending approval of the ordinance. The Planning Commission recommended approval as well. They deliberated on it. We feel like the purpose statement includes the elements that they have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Taney?
I just have a concern. I think it's really important when we were first explained this issue. It really concerns me because I think it's important that we have district representation and that we make sure that we do and that it be a requirement rather than a consideration. I still think that that's very important. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Tini? Okay, thank you very much. I personally agree with Diane on that. I listen to Tim and still something inside me just says that how I feel it's important for representations, even though they don't represent the constituents, they still come from that area. And you have different ideas from different areas. And I love the idea that we have the opportunity to have to be able to be from other areas. So I like that, but that's my opinion. So we'll open this for public hearing or public comment. Excuse me. Is there anyone here for public comment? If not, we'll close that part. And we'll bring it back to the council for for consideration.
Just a comment, I tend to agree with the comments that were already made. As I mentioned in our committee of the whole meeting, I just think the graphical representation does have some value. So I'm really hesitant to agree with everything you said, Tim.
With that, is there a motion?
Well, I'd make a motion to approve an ordinance repealing Section 17-12030 of the Murray City Municipal Code regarding the geographical representation requirement of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
So the motion is to approve the ordinance. Again, I don't feel like that's the right way to go, but so if we vote for it, we're voting for the change. If we just
That's correct.
okay. Okay. I don't have any further comment.
Okay. So you second for comments. So is there a second for the motion?
Yes, I seconded the motion.
Second for the motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
Brent?
Aye.
No.
No.
No. All right, thank you. Next, we have, there's no unfinished business. We do have new business. Consider a resolution approving interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and the Utah Department of Public Safety Division, DEM, for the Emergency Management Performance Grant. And John Harris with our fire department here to represent. Welcome, John.
Thank you. So the federal government has a grant program called EMPG, which is Emergency Management Performance Grant. That grant is designed to give funds to states, municipalities, in order to fund an emergency preparedness program. Specifically, this grant replaces part of the salary of either a full-time or a part-time emergency manager. We've applied for this grant and successfully got it for like the last 10 years or so. This year, we're able to get a little bit more funding because we are starting to allocate even more time towards emergency management here in Murray. So the purpose of today is to establish an agreement between the Department of Emergency Management and Murray City to receive these funds.
Great. Thank you, John. Any questions or comments for John? Okay, if not, do we have a motion? Thanks, John, we appreciate you.
I move to turn my mic on. I move approval of the resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and Utah Department of Public Safety Division of Emergency Management for the EMPG grant, EMP grant.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Brent?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Now we're here for our mayor report. Mayor, welcome, and turn the time over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief tonight. We just wanted to remind you once again of the Kids Eats program that we talked about last council meeting. That starts on August the 4th, runs through August the 15th. The barrels have already been distributed throughout the city buildings, and there's notifications, I think, on the barrels of the appropriate type of food that we can donate to that. That's for that Linda Brown's project to fill over 60, I think it's far more than 60 backpacks that she is filling now each week for the kids to take home from the Boys and Girls Club. So we just like to remind everybody again about that. Yes, please.
I'm wondering if we want to contribute money, check or something, how would we do that?
They've done that. I think they've set up a 501c3 corporation. I think that's complete now, isn't it? And so you can make a check to a 501c3 corporation called Kids Eats, correct? And
I think you can donate online as well.
oh, okay, that's great. I didn't know that, but you can also do it online. So you can probably bring checks to our office if you would like to, and through our office, we would make sure that they would get down there. I've also received, even this week, a $100 cash donation to make sure, and so I wanted to make sure that I was able to get a receipt for that to give to that person so that they would be able to do that too. So cash, checks, or even online to that, but food obviously as well. And they have a nice facility right over here in this used to be called Creekside School, I think, that they have the facility now instead of just working strictly out of her garage or her basement to do that. And so it's really expanding into quite a program. So we just wanted to remind you of that again. Then recently on another item, my wife and I have had the opportunity to be over in the park several times during the week and during the work week. And it's just amazing how much our park is used over there. We were over there at the Outdoor Swimming Aquatic Center, and it was just about filled to capacity with people enjoying the outside activities out there. Along with, they had the health fair coming up on August the 15th. The farmers market is open up there, and it's the number of activities that are going on there, along with the amphitheater in the evening. I think Tarzan is playing right now in the amphitheater, and we've been over there. We were over there last night, and for a few minutes with our children to welcome into that production, and it looks like it's going to be very well received. But the interesting thing is, too, not only during the day, but especially in the evenings, too, there is an additional 1,000 people or more in the park every night doing Pokemon Go. And so if you walk through the park, you see just about everybody looking down at their little iPads or iPhones looking for Pokemon Go. But I just wanted to say once again how much we appreciate the army of people that work over there in that park to make all these facilities and activities available to our citizens over in the park. As I might have mentioned in one of the meetings, Doug and I was able to present some information to a panel about our parks, and we can document by the number of people that use our park center, our pavilions, go to our theater productions and those. We can document over 1 million people that use our park every year, and those are people that we can actually do a head count on. So we actually probably have closer to 2 million people a year using our park over there, and it's a real a wonderful facility attribute to our city here. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's public attention again. So that's all I had tonight. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I'll just tell you that we went to Tarzan last night. Wonderful. Absolutely. I mean, the evening was great. And then West Side Story starts, I believe, this week.
Is it?
So,
yeah.
And that's a great story. But that Tarzan, they did a phenomenal job, and it's just our community, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Can I just add to that, Brett, too? You brought up a really good point there. There are some big production amphitheaters around the valley that try and put on very big production type things, with international acts and everything. But here in Murray, we have an amphitheater that's really dedicated to local talent. really dedicated to people who want to perform on a local area here instead of just have major big productions here. And that's just part of the charm and the character of Murray's community, I think, is to be able to offer that.
Yep, I agree. Well, thank you, Mayor. Any other questions for the mayor? All right, thank you. We appreciate everyone that's attended tonight, and this meeting's adjourned.